All right, so we're looking at 3.6 video notes here, and 3.6, this is Slope-Intercept Form. So some of this is review, some of it is going to be a little bit new as we get towards the end, particularly questions probably like 6 through 10. First thing, Slope-Intercept Form. Y equals mx plus b. And you might recall from algebra that the m represents the slope, or just in general, how steep a line is. The back number here, this constant, which they call b, I don't know why. It doesn't really stand for anything here, but it's the y-intercept. I don't really know where the b came from, but that is where it crosses the y-axis. So those are always kind of two parts of this, and the key feature for slope-intercept form is y is on one side all by itself. So a couple quick things about slope. If you have a slope that's positive, so if you have a positive m, basically the numerator, the top number is going to tell you to go up, and the denominator, the bottom number is going to tell you to go right. And if you have a negative m, then that means that the top number is telling you to go down, and the bottom number tells you to go right. And I'll kind of illustrate this when we do some of our examples here. So looking at number 1, if I want to graph y equals 2x plus 1 the fastest way possible, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at my y-intercept. So right here, that's the y-intercept, and it crosses the y-axis at a positive 1. And then my slope is right here too. Now, it's positive, but we needed a fraction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 1 under it. Whenever it's a whole number, I stick a 1 under it. And that way I know that I can go up 2, right 1. So go up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1. Then I just kind of stair step it back down, going down and left to do the opposite. And then I draw my line, put my arrows on it, and we're good to go. So moving a little quicker through number 2 here. Again, to graph this, I go to the y-intercept, which is negative 2, which is right here. From that y-intercept, I then do my slope, and negative 1 over 5 means go down 1, right 5. So down 1, right 5. If I go up the stairs the other way, up 1, left 5, I'm going to get a really flat line going in this direction. All right, keeping it going, number 3. Start at the back number here. My y-intercept is at 2, and my m here, my slope, if there's no number there, it's 1. And then I'm going to put a 1 under it, so it means I go up 1, right 1. So up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1. Go down the other direction. So you end up with a line right there on a 45-degree angle. So number 4, first thing I notice is there is no back number. So where is my y-intercept? Well, if that happens, your y-intercept is at 0. So my y-intercept is 0. And my slope is, well, there's no number there, so it's negative 1. And I'm going to put a 1 under it to know that I go down 1 and I go right 1. So down and right, down and right, down and right. And you're going to get this line cutting right up through that way. All right, moving forward. Number 5 and 6, now we're getting into the writing portion. So now we have to be able to write equations. So the first one's pretty easy. If the slope is 2, that means your m is 2. The y-intercept, that's your b, is negative 4. So to write your slope-intercept equation, you pretty much just substitute in the 2 for m and the negative 4 for b. And that's one of the easier questions on this section. Now, number 6, I need m and I need b. The issue is I do know what the slope is. The m is 3, but I'm missing the b. I don't have my y-intercept. So what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to use what's called the solve for b method. And the solve for b method is I start off with my generic equation, y equals mx plus b. And I fill in everything that I know. Well, I know that the slope is m, is 3. And they also give me an xy that live on the line. So if they live on the line, that means they satisfy the equation when you plug it in. So my x value goes here, My y value goes there, and I have negative 1 equals 3 times a negative 2 plus b. And now we're actually going to solve for that b. So I end up with negative 1 equals negative 6 plus b. I'm going to add 6 to both sides, and I end up with b equals 5. Now I have my m, I have my b. We should be able to write the final answer. Y equals mx plus b. So there's an equation that will have the correct slope, and it guaranteed will contain this point. You know, if I were to do a little t-chart, and I were to do a little xy table, and I stick negative 2 in there for x, 3 times negative 2 is negative 6 plus 5. It does check out. It does live on the line. It does satisfy the table. All right, moving on down to number 7 and number 8. Number 7 is the same thing, just a little bit extra practice, so I'm going to move pretty quickly on this one. The slope is 1/3. The b we don't know, so we solve for b. So I start off with y equals mx plus b. I plug in the y value. I plug in the x value. And then we solve, clean this up a little bit. 1/3 times a negative 3 is negative 1 plus b. Add 1 to both sides, and we end up with b equals 3. Fill that in. And now we can go ahead and we can write the final answer. Y equals mx plus b. All right, number 8. Number 8's a little bit trickier because they do not give me m and they do not give me b. So I have two things I have to find now. So first let's go after m. To find the slope when given 2 points, I'm going to do what's called the slope slide. It's basically the same thing as the slope equation. It just organizes it kind of nice for you. So you basically come with a line straight down, curve to the right. What it does is it forces me to put the two y values on top, which is something a lot of kids screw up. 4 minus 1. And on the bottom, I'm going to have a negative 1 subtract negative 2. And cleaning that up, I get 3 over plus a positive. So it looks like my m is 3. Now we can do what we just did on the previous problems. You know, I start off and I have y equals mx plus b. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stick my y in there as 4. Stick my x in there as negative 1. We're going to solve for b. And add the 3 to both sides. And it looks like I'm going to have b equals 7. So now that I have the two pieces I need, I should be able to come down, should be able to give the final answer. Y equals mx plus b. And listen, if you're not sure, remember you can always go to desmos.com if you don't have a graphing calculator, and you can graph that equation and just verify that it does hit these 2 points and that it does work out fine for you. All right, last two. Here's where we crank up the heat. We put it all together. So number 9, I need to go through this point. So here's my xy I'm going to plug in. I need to be parallel to this line. So the first thing I need to know is, in order to be parallel to a line, I need to have the same exact slope. So looking at this line, he has a slope of 1/3. So my line also has to have the same slope if I want to be parallel. I don't know my b, so that's where we got to go back to what we were doing before. You know, y equals mx plus b. I'm going to put these two numbers in. 1 equals 1/3 negative 3 added to b, which gives me 1 equals negative 1 plus b. Add the 1 to both sides, and we get b equals 2. So now I should be able to write our answer. Y equals mx plus b. And what should happen is these two lines should be parallel to each other. Remember, that's the symbol for parallel. And my line's going to go through the point negative 3, 1. So a lot of stuff going on. All right, the big dog, the big daddy of all this section. Everything's the same except for perpendicular. Remember, perpendicular is the upside down T. It's 90 degrees. So that means that, one line's going to come in this way, one line's going to come in that way, and they're going to be at right angles to each other. So that's basically what's going on. I need to come up with my own line to hit their line at 90 degrees. So let's focus on their line. Their line right here has a slope of negative 5/4. Now with parallel, I just made mine be the same, but perpendicular is a little different animal. When you want to be perpendicular, your slopes need to be opposite reciprocals. So opposite means one's got to be positive, one's got to be negative. So if I notice up here, theirs was negative, so my slope is going to be positive. And reciprocals you can kind of think of like as flips of each other. So if they're 5/4, I need to trade places and I need to be 4/5. So now I have a slope. It's positive 4/5. I'm going to get rid of that just because it looks goofy. And I still need to find the b, so we're going to use our old solve for b method. So y equals mx plus b, and then we just substitute some people in. So 0 equals 4/5 times 3 plus b. I'm actually going to change this 3, and I'm going to make it a 3/1 because it'll be a little bit easier to multiply the fractions. Because when you multiply fractions, you don't need a common denominator. You just go straight across. So I get 12/5. Subtract 12/5 from both sides. And I get b equals negative 12/5. So my final answer, y is mx, in this case, minus b. All right, and that's your final answer. So hopefully this will help get you through today's practice.